panel. I'm actually honored to be able to introduce to you the man that many of you call JC, Juan Carlos. So let me read a little bit to you this bio, because I think that Juan Carlos Gutierrez, and he's going to introduce someone else as well, but I'm going to bring up Mr. Gutierrez. I think that, you know, within the context of high tech, he qualifies for what, you know, many would consider to be a legend. So let me just read this to you. I'm not going to read the whole bio, but I do think that it's appropriate to read a few things. Mr. Gutierrez JC Juan Carlos is a global executive with more than 2 decades of experience in information technology and business consulting for several industries around the world. Mr. Gutierrez is currently the head of solutions architecture and customer success at Amazon Web Services for Latin America and the Caribbean. He is a former group vice president of Oracle Corporation, where he was responsible for the consulting business for the Latin America and Caribbean regions. He previously was the CEO and managing partner at Rationale 7, leading data, AI, and IoT, and even cloud initiatives globally. He is also was also a managing director at PwC, where he was the technology and digital consulting leader for ISPO America, advisory services region. And he is, watch this, 8 times the awardee of the prestigious High Tech 100 Award and High Tech 50, and he was inducted into the High Tech Hall of Fame. In 2011, he was recognized as one of the most influential Hispanics in technology by Hispanic Engineer and Information Technology magazine. I want you to put your hands together and welcome to the stage Juan Carlos, el señor Gutierrez. Fuerte aplauso.
Thank you, sir. Here's Juan Carlos. Well, that was a big intro. Thank you so much, Frank. I appreciate that. Can I hire you for the next one? No, that's good. So, hi, everybody. It is a real pleasure for me to be here today and actually moderate this fireside chat that I'm going to have with Rich Hua from AWS. So let me introduce Rich. If you want to come to the stage, Rich, while I talk a little bit about you, but Rich is our global leader at Amazon, actually, not only AWS, of what we call EPIC, which is the global initiative that we have internally in Amazon for emotional intelligence, empathy, leadership, okay, which is a big global initiative that we have. Rich has been in Amazon for more than 5 years. So in Amazon, we call that an OG. It's an OG in Amazon. Before that, we shared actual experience in Oracle. So he was also, so he moved from Red to Orange, moving from the Oracle side to Amazon. But interesting about Rich is that before, he spent 23 years as a missionary. And he did a lot of missions in globally, but in particular in the Philippines. So I'm looking forward to know more about Rich in that area. But welcome. It is really an honor for me to have this fireside chat with you, Rich.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Okay.
And it's a special honor. I didn't realize I was being interviewed by a legend. I feel like I should ask for your autograph or something.
No, that was great, Rick. So again, it is a great honor, Rich, to count with you here in high tech. It's a community, big community about Hispanics leaders that I'm really grateful for you saying yes and know us a little bit more. But what a journey. I mean, missionary, technology, now leadership globally. So this movement, so what made you, transition, if you will, in that journey from being a missionary, paying back, technology expert, and then, leading a global initiative around emotional intelligence and leadership?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about what's happened at Amazon, and then I'll share a little bit more about my life story in the next section. So I've been at Amazon now almost 6 years. And I've always had a passion for emotional intelligence, and that's because for me, it was very, very low for the first 20 years of my life. Let's just say nobody would have accused me of having any EQ until I was about 25, 30 years old, and then I had a little bit. And so it's been a journey, and I've seen the incredible benefit that emotional and social skills have had on me, both professionally and personally. And so when I got to Oracle, actually about 10 years ago, I saw that there was a gap where solutions architects and technical people were incredibly smart, but their social abilities could use some help that would allow them to have more empathy for customers and be more effective on their jobs. So I started training people there, trained several thousand people. But then when I got to Amazon, I saw the same thing. Amazon has incredibly, incredibly smart people, as you know. But I saw an opportunity to help people with this EQ side rather than just the high IQ side. So I started delivering talks about emotional intelligence. And it started really small. I did it at the building in San Francisco. We got about 100 people together, gave a talk, and people loved it, really found a lot of value. And then we had this event called Sales Kickoff 2019. And totally on a whim, I submitted, hey, how about a talk in emotional intelligence? Something that had never been done before, right? Everything's about IT, technology, partners, things like that. And so I thought, hey, maybe somebody will pick this up. And they did. They said, let's give this guy a chance and talk about emotional intelligence. And let's see if anybody shows up to this very strange talk. So they put me in a room for 185 people. And the day before the talk, the organizers called me up and said, oh my goodness, there's so many people want to attend, we have to put you in a bigger room. And they put me in a room for 1,000 people, and it wound up being standing room only. And it wound up actually being the highest attended and highest rated session at the entire event. And so that gave me a data point that, okay, this is a really resonant topic that people want to hear more about. So people started coming up to me saying, how can I help? We want to join this movement. We want to be able to help spread this. And so we actually wound up forming a community of 50,000 people at Amazon who are all very passionate about practicing, growing in, and spreading emotional intelligence skills. And a good number of them volunteered to be EQ champions. They said, we want to help you literally go deliver some of these talks. And so we've actually delivered some kind of emotional intelligence training to over 200,000 Amazonians and also 10,000 customers over the last 3.5 years. And so this is actually while I was the principal global business development leader for Aurora Database. So it was off the side of my desk.
At night.
At night, yeah. Little too many hours at night, much to my wife's chagrin. But anyway, it was a passion. She understood. And so in traditional Amazon style, I wrote a narrative. I said this should be a full-time job. I floated up to some senior leaders. And to Amazon's credit, this person said, heck yeah, let's do it. Why don't you hire a team? And 8 months ago, I became the global head of the EPIC Leadership Program. And that stands for leaders who have high emotional intelligence and lead with empathy, purpose, inspiration, and connection. So, I'm happy to have that role. It's a dream, really, in many ways.
That's awesome. And so I think the first time that I knew about Rich was actually in my own onboarding. So something that we do in Amazon is that the first 3 to 6 months, we onboard any Amazonian, any employee. And as part of my onboarding in 2020 was Rich talking about emotional intelligence and why it was so important. So between 2019 sales kickoff to 2020, the talk was already global part of the embark in the onboarding. So great impact, Rich. And the other thing, I reach out to you. That I remember in hey, can you train more, of my people? Can you, come and participate in events? And you always say, you show your EQ saying, yes, let me do that. But I want to talk, if I may, Rich, about EQ in 3 buckets, as we call it in buckets of storage in AWS, but 3 buckets. One is EQ in a corporation, in a company. Why is that important? And why, to our knowledge, this is probably the first initiative that a corporation is taking to have this role globally and impact, more than 1 million of Amazonians globally. Second is why EQ is important for you as a person. And let's talk at the end EQ for the community. So communities like high tech and others, why EQ is so important. So starting with the company, why Amazon, invest and create this initiative? What was missing in what Amazon was doing to invest in this?
Yeah, so I'll start with a bit of a definition, right? Emotional intelligence is simply the ability to understand and manage your own emotions, and the ability then to understand and manage the emotions of other people so that you can basically have healthy, productive relationships and success, hopefully mutually, right? And so it's a core set of skills that are so important for companies because, you know, when you lead with empathy, you just have a lot better outcomes in so many different ways. And, you know, some people have said that emotional intelligence is really the intelligent use of emotions, right? It's understanding how to take care of yourself and then how to take care of the people that you lead. And of course, many of us here are leaders. And this, of course, has become more and more prominent over the last few years. Right, as you look at what's happening in the global landscape, right, of course, we've had the pandemic. It's still ongoing, depending on who you ask, right? And so suddenly, how people feel and what's going on in their personal lives ran directly into their professional lives, and you couldn't ignore it anymore, right? The second thing is the heightened awareness of racial justice, right, and equity, and the realization that we need to be more inclusive, and we need to be more equitable, and we need to be more diverse. And so that, of course, has a very strong emotional component to it, and of course, empathy is a big part of that. The third is then, you know, sort of the new workforce, right? We're hiring younger people, sort of next generations, and they care a lot more about purpose and sustainability and work environment and balance and all that stuff, right? And then finally, of course, you know, we're all prone to the great resignation or the great reshuffle, whatever you want to call it. Like, people are quitting at record numbers because they're just unhappy with their job. And so the idea of how you actually feel at work is really, really important. And at Amazon, something really interesting happened, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. You know, we hire amazing people, as you know. They're incredibly talented, incredibly skilled. And so a lot of managers were like, you know what, I hired the best people, go do your job. You know, I don't really have to worry about you, right? But what happened with the pandemic is suddenly all these incredibly high-performing people were having struggles. Right? You might have been an incredibly awesome executive or leader, but now you're homeschooling 3 kids and you're like overwhelmed and you're fried. You suddenly couldn't just ignore all that. And so it became really a conversation of what's really going on with you. How are you doing? How are you feeling? And hundreds of thousands of managers who are used to never talking about that suddenly were like, it was in your face, right? I can't ignore it anymore. It's not just performance management. It actually became the human side of managing and connecting with people. And so I think the entire world, not just Amazon, was forced to deal with the fact that how we used to manage and treat our people before can no longer be how we treat people in the future because they are human beings. They're not automatons. And so I think those things all came together to cause us to realize how important this really is.
Oh, that's great. In Amazon, we have, you know, we're proud of our culture. And the culture of Amazon, being Amazonian, is based on the leadership principles. So we have now 16 leadership principles. Until last year, we had 14, right? That define it, who an Amazonian is, how an Amazonian behave, you know. But now we have 2 more. Those 2 are actually related exactly with what you are saying. And you know, can you share a little bit why we have those 2 leadership principles and now how this program is helping us to behave based on those 2 leadership principles?
Yeah, so if you're familiar with Amazon, you realize that you know, we kind of eat, live, and breathe our leadership principles, and they all begin with customer obsession, right? It's like we really, really do try to help our customers and get you your packages in 2 days. How many of us are Amazon Prime members out there, by the way? Oh, well, thank you for your patronage.
Who is not an Amazon Prime member?
On behalf of Jeff and Andy, thank you. No, but all jokes aside, I mean, obviously, we really, really want to treat customers well. And we have these other ones that then kind of end with deliver results, right? You start with this idea of really making sure you're customer obsessed, and you got to get the job done. And it worked really great for, like, you know, 27 years, right? We were getting the job done, very innovative, growing and all that. But what has happened over the last couple of years made us realize that is not enough because there's not an explicit calling out of really taking care of our people in an empathetic way, right? And so there are people who were able to get a lot of stuff done and be very successful as leaders, but, you know, and many of them were quite inspiring and empathetic, but many weren't. And so, you know, the senior leaders at Amazon obviously realized we need to make this more explicit. And you know, 2 new leadership principles came out, and the main one that I focus on is strive to be Earth's best employer. And inside it has verbiage that says leaders lead with empathy, have fun at work, and make it easy for others to have fun. And they have a vision for and commitment to their employees' personal success. And I thought, Wow, this is awesome. It was the first time in 27 years we actually really very explicitly sort of promoted employees to the same level as customers, right? That they're both incredibly important. And so that is really what I'm serving, that leadership principle, because I believe that, really empathy is the embodiment in so many ways of the emotional intelligence skills. And so, so something big is happening. We're really undergoing this incredible cultural evolution, and it's an exciting time to actually be at Amazon.
So one of the other leadership principles that we have in Amazon is hire and develop the best, which is looking, for top individuals that want to join Amazon and become Amazonians, but also develop them once they are in Amazon. It was actually a transition in how we hire, because now having these 2 additional LPs, one, strive to be the best employer. Something that we do in Amazon is hiring based on the LP. So we want to make sure that when we hire in Amazon, there is a fit with the culture. So it became, last year, super important to hire people that strive to be, best employers. And that they like to enjoy, to have empathy. So from the beginning now, if you will, in the hiring process, we are validating that now. Your training and your program is a key component of how we interview, what we know, what are the skills that we're looking for now in these people. So can you share more about the training and the execution of EPIC in detail?
Yeah, so it takes many forms. What we've done is we've delivered what I call EPIC or EQ keynotes. They're basically like 1 to 2 hour talks to help people understand the foundations of emotional intelligence, why it's important, how to work on certain skills. And then you can basically go to take like a half-day workshop or a full-day workshop, and that's what I call the Level 200 EPIC workshop, and that's what we're actually running in pilots now across Amazon. We've taken hundreds of leaders through it, and the goal is to basically take hundreds of thousands of leaders through it over the next 3 years. And so it's essentially a full-day training where you learn the foundations of recognizing your own emotional states, managing it in a productive way, managing stress. Anybody got any stress out there, right? It's one of the big things you have to deal with. Preventing burnout. And so taking care of yourself, and then turning around and being able to also lead your teams with a sense of empathy and inspiration and interpersonal connection so that they're motivated, right? And hopefully they'll do their best work, they'll grow, and they'll also want to stick with you as a manager, right? And so those are all the goals. And so the EPIC program itself is in pilot. We like to run experiments, so we're going to run about 1,000 people through it this year. And as we create our measurement, as we continue to iterate, as we continue to try to scale, that's something that, in the days to come. My goal is to really have a majority of Amazon leaders go through that EPIC program over the next 3 years so that we can really help evolve and grow the culture.
Perfect. And that goes to the develop, the best, or develop our team. And, but it's interesting. I have in Amazon a role that is called bar raiser. And just to share with you, in Amazon, when we hire, we have this mentality that we are hiring every individual that comes to Amazon. It should be 50% better than other Amazonians that are having the same job. So we call that bar raising. So it's every time that we hire, we raise the bar. And as part of that bar raising process is making sure that people have now empathy, have diversity as a priority. We didn't have that before.
Yeah.
So now that is a core component of the hiring process that we didn't have that before, and that I think is a lot of your impact from 2019 and making sure that the leadership understood that was super important.
Yeah, and one thing I was going to say too is, this is kind of what we're doing at Amazon, and yet this applies to all companies everywhere. Mm-hmm. Because everyone is trying to hire great people, right? And so if we're going to actually track them, we need to have an environment that does make it conducive for people to enjoy their job and have opportunities for growth and also be able to balance and have well-being. Because that's just something that's obviously really, really important to everyone right now. And obviously, really almost every major company in the world and smaller ones are striving to be more inclusive, right? More diverse. And so for me, this idea of empathy and emotional intelligence, I think of them as the inputs right? You actually train people in that. And as they grow in that, the output are things like inspirational leadership and inclusion and equity. You can't actually train inclusion per se, because you can't memorize every single situation or scenario you're going to encounter in order to include people, and everyone's different. But it's empathy that's this core skill that's going to help you be actually a more inclusive and equitable leader. So it's really a powerful thing. So we're working very closely to help drive that sort of cultural evolution.
And we were talking also in other opportunity that what we train is how to change habits and to, making sure that you have habits and the results are basically the results of those habits. And having empathy, listening more is a habit, right? That you can develop and improve your EQ based on that. Actually, I want to go, before we go to the personal you, if you don't mind, to share a little bit of your missionary history, also Stephen Covey, background, because we share that, at least the love, if you will, for the 7 habits and what Steve Covey built in that program. You were actually one of the speakers in that program, and that is a core component of what you are doing with the EQ. So can you share a little bit more of that background?
Yeah, so I basically came from Taiwan at 3.5 years old, and I moved to the Chicagoland area. I actually grew up in Downers Grove, Illinois. I don't know if anybody's from out there. So if you are, woo woo, all right. So I was incredibly awkward socially. I had and have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, so neurodiverse. And I didn't speak English. So I was 3.5, and by the way, I actually got kicked out of preschool after one day. My teacher basically took me by the hand, took me home, handed me to my mom, and said, please do not bring him back for a year. We literally cannot handle this Tasmanian devil. Because I just was so energetic, I couldn't control myself. And then when I was in kindergarten, my teacher thought I was actually cognitively impaired because I didn't answer by my name. She'd say, Richard Hua. I'd be like this because I only knew my Chinese name, so I didn't know what she was talking about. And so I sat in the corner by myself for like 6 months until she figured out this kid doesn't speak English. And so it was kind of a rough childhood. And I laugh about it now, but really I felt a lot of loneliness, anger, resentment, disappointment, fear, anxiety. And I decided to shut off all my emotions because they were basically unpleasant. And I decided, hey, let me kind of be more of a robot because then I don't have to feel bad, right? And I figured out I was actually pretty smart, so I decided to, try to be a genius robot, right? So, I got straight A's, went to Cal Berkeley, studied electrical engineering, computer science, and everything was going fantastic for my sort of robot future. But then one thing completely messed up my plan, and it was called I got married. And my wife, really insisted that I lose some of that robot Vulcan side and become more of a human being. And so in my 20s, I actually really started working hard on those skills, emotional awareness and empathy and things like that. I got a lot of mentoring. My wife helped me a ton. I got coaching. I read tons of books, took courses. And I grew tremendously in that area. And that's actually when I felt like I had found a calling. I want to actually help people. I actually really enjoy connecting and helping them emotionally, physically, spiritually, all that. And so I wanted to go to the Philippines as a missionary for several years. And then I came back to the Bay Area, was an evangelist for another 20. And so while I was there, I actually developed a program to train people in their emotional intelligence. At the same time, I had the good fortune of meeting a gentleman named Meng Tan. So he was creating an emotional intelligence training at Google called Search Inside Yourself. And we became really good friends. And so he was doing his thing at Google. I was doing my thing in my congregation. And we started working together on that. And then I eventually brought it to the corporate world. So it was really a lot out of my own need to grow in those areas. And I absolutely attribute to emotional and social skills to being the catalyst for a lot of my success, right? When I was at Oracle, I got promoted multiple times quickly, and same at Amazon. And it's not because I'm smarter than everyone else. I think a lot of people out there are a lot smarter than I am from an IQ perspective, but it was the EQ stuff that really made a difference. And by the way, there's an HBR article that just came out recently, and what they found is that over the last 15 years, the main qualities for senior leaders, especially C-level executives, has completely shifted. It's gone from knowing how to manage material and financial resources as the top. I mean, that's still important, but you know what the top skills now are? Social skills, basically. They're like, you need to have social skills if you're going to be a successful senior leader in today's environment.
So let's shift now with that great intro to people. Why me? So now we got the corporation. It is important, successful leaders, better, customer engagements with EQ. Yeah. So why as a person? And, something that we say in Amazon is that we are all leaders. So you don't have to be a manager to be a leader. You don't have to have, people under you to be a leader. So everybody's a leader. And I have that belief actually before Amazon. And I think as an individual, everything that you want to give to others starts with you. So you should receive what you want to share with others. If you don't have it, how you can help others. And when something that I always fascinated me is in the airplanes, you get this message like, hey, if there is an emergency, the mask comes down, use it in yourself. And why? I want to use it with my wife. I want to use it with my kids first. No, in order to help them, you have to use the mask with you first. So why EQ is important for you, not only in the company, Rich, but as a holistic human being? Why in you?
So here's the really fascinating thing, right? Daniel Goleman did some really great research a little while back, and he found that when it comes to long-term success in your career, up to 85% of it is attributed to emotional intelligence skills, whereas only 15% is the IQ part, right? And so oftentimes people ask, isn't IQ important? And heck, yeah, absolutely, heck yeah. Right? You do need to have competency, but once you're smart enough, all the other things become the emotional social skills, right? And so IQ is like what he calls threshold abilities, whereas EQ is what he calls distinguishing abilities, right? They actually make you a star, right? Think about it. Being able to have cognitive control, grit, determination, perseverance, staying cool under pressure, influence, empathy, inspiration, those are all emotional skills. Right? And you can be the smartest person in the world, but if you don't have those, I mean, who wants to work for a boss that has no emotional skills but is really smart and can make you feel dumb all the time? Like, I mean, who wants that, right? I mean, no thank you, right? So the point is all those things are really important, and they're also really important for your well-being, right? Especially these days, we've learned from the pandemic, it's really challenging. Mental health, physical health, all those have gone downhill dramatically. And 1 out of 3 people actually considering quitting their jobs for the sake of their mental wellness. I mean, it's a jungle out there. And yet, how many of us have ever taken a course on emotional intelligence skills? Raise your hand if you actually have. Love to see. Okay, a few people out there. About a third. Okay, awesome. That's great. And yet, think about the years and years that you spent in history, geography, language, science, all stuff that you don't use anymore in any way, shape, or form. And those are fine, but we can literally have an entire PhD and never have taken a single course on emotional social skills. And yet it's core to well-being, to happiness, and to success, both professionally and personally. So studies have actually found that if you have higher EQ, you basically long-term have higher pay because you can progress. You're also happier on the job because you know how to work things to help yourself actually enjoy it. You have more happiness just in life in general. And of course, mentally, emotionally, you're just more well. So
excellent.
A lot of benefits.
So as an individual, what signals do you think, we start to get manage and better identify for ourselves when we have a higher EQ? So how we know that something is wrong and happening?
Yeah. So I'll answer that sort of latter part. Like, how do we know something's not going well or maybe gone awry? One of the biggest things I've talked a lot about over the last year and a half is burnout. Okay, it is a huge challenge everyone is facing. The average person has worked 3 or 4 extra hours per day since the pandemic started. Can any of you relate to that? Right? Like, exactly, a lot of hands, right? So, no more commute, we're just working. You literally roll out of bed and jump on a meeting, right? Maybe with your camera on even, the hair all over the place. No one cares, right? And then you're like, there's no demarcation point. Like, you're working until 6, 7, 8, you go have some dinner and then you jump back on the computer. I mean, it's like kind of terrible, actually. And so symptoms are things like, actually raise your hand. Any of us out there you have a hard time falling asleep at night. You know, your brain's still going, just rolling, okay? All right, got it? A lot of people. How about anxiety upon waking? Right when you wake up in the morning, it's like ding, 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 ding. Your brain's already kind of going, you know, all the stuff that's going on. How about you feel exhausted a lot of the time? Right? I mean, see the hands? Right? How about this one? You just have a hard time winding down at night. You want to eat some dinner, watch TV or something, but it's still, your brain's still going, right? And I don't know what's going on with my laptop, but I will close it and I think it's asleep, but then it actually still makes dinging noises. Like somebody's trying to get you. So, you know, it's kind of funny, but it's also kind of not funny because those are all symptoms of burnout, right? Can't sleep, not getting enough sleep, stressed out even when we wake up, stressed out all day, stressed out in the evening, and we're just exhausted. And so we need to learn some skills that will actually help us be able to manage that. And emotional intelligence skills have a lot to do with it because those are a lot of emotions that are flying around that we need to, you know, kind of put on that oxygen mask.
Right, exactly. Going to the oxygen example, any technique you recommend to get better with those burnout signals?
Yeah, I will give you a couple of techniques, and I have a whole, this is not a shameless plug, but if you want to find out more, I have YouTube videos out there where I've talked about more techniques. I talked at reInvent, the last couple of reInvents. So if you want to go check it out, you know, please do. There are more there. But I will give you two that are actually really powerful. One is increasing our positivity with gratitude. If we simply just take some time each day and write down, I call it 3x3. You write down 3 things you're grateful for 3 weeks, and that actually changes the way you look at life. You notice more things around you to be grateful for, and you actually wind up elevating your mood in general. This is the #1 technique used by therapists to actually treat people with depression, and they found that for many people it's actually more effective than even antidepressants. Because when you actually intentionally think about things you're grateful for, you create more serotonin and dopamine in your body, and that actually are the 2 main neurotransmitters targeted by antidepressants. And so, you know, and there's a specific way to do it. You try to be as specific as possible. Instead of saying, I'm grateful for my kids, you say, I'm grateful my son gave me a hug today and told me that he loved me. Or instead of saying, I'm grateful for my job, you can say, I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to work on this project because it really was meaningful, or my colleague said this thing about me that was really appreciative. So you try to identify specific things that happen each day, and as you do that, it actually changes your brain. And I'll give you a super booster. If you express that gratitude to another human being, they actually get the experience too, right? So when you thank someone and you express your gratitude, you create serotonin, dopamine, and you create it in them as well. And so we can actually go around doing that without a prescription, without doctors, without ODing, and doesn't cost any money, right? And we can do it all the time. So gratitude is really powerful. And it's important to strive to be positive because there's just so much negativity in the world. I mean, it doesn't mean you're positive all the time. I mean, there are things that you're going to feel that are not so pleasant, and that's actually very healthy. But how many of us have ever woken up in the morning and said, you know, I really hope today is more negative because yesterday at work was just way too positive. I mean, nobody has, you know, I mean, there's a lot there, and all you got to do is pick up your phone to get more negative, right? So gratitude is actually quite powerful to balance it out. Another technique is probably the most important one that we've taught across Amazon, and it is called the box breathing technique. When you do this specific type of sort of breathing, you create more oxytocin in your body, which reduces stress and helps you be more focused, and it also activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which actually decreases heart rate and blood pressure. And so it's the most popular one because it's super easy to do. You can do it anywhere. And it doesn't take really any skill. You just do it. And it's been used by the Navy SEALs when bullets are literally flying. So I figured, hey, if it works for them, it should probably work for you talking to your teenager, you know, or in a meeting with your manager, right? So don't take my word for it. If you don't mind, let's do it together, all right? You game for this? Want to try it? Okay, if you're at home, I can't see you, but try it with me. If you don't like it, don't ever do it again. Say, you know, this rich guy's crazy. But who knows, maybe you'll think it's actually really useful. So I want to ask you, sit in your seat, kind of sit up straight but comfortable. All right, kind of put your hands, you know, on the side somewhere, armrest or in your lap. Put your feet on the ground, kind of feel, you know, wiggle your toes, feel the solid ground beneath you. And the box breath base works like this. You breathe in for a 4 count through the nose. You hold it for a 4 count. You breathe out for a 4 count through the mouth or the nose, either one. And then you hold it for a 4 count. So 4, 4, 4, 4. Got it? So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. All right, this is going to feel a little goofy, all right? I totally get it. Close your eyes, get the distractions out. Let the breath out. In through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out through the mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Into the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out through the mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now do it on your own, just sort of counting in your own head, the box breath, the 4 count, and really try to get a nice big full breath of air on the way in. Some people actually like to put their hand on their diaphragm or their chest to feel the lungs expand, and then feel the lungs contract when they let all that carbon dioxide out. And I'll tell you, one really interesting thing is that when you let all that CO2 out, it's actually quite pleasant. It's a good feeling, so just try to savor it a little bit. Enjoy getting all that CO2 out of your body. Okay, one final cycle of a box breath on your own. All right, open your eyes. That was probably the quietest 2 minutes you will have at the high-tech conference, or maybe in your entire career. Yeah, thanks. Well, how does that feel? Just kind of yell it out. How'd that feel?
Good.
Good, great, amazing. Any others? Grounding, excellent. Okay, so I hear often, right, all those relaxing, focused. Gentleman over here fell asleep in the 3rd row. No, but that does happen also. Probably means you're a little sleep deprived, actually, if that does. But when you do it, you do activate that parasympathetic nervous system, and it down-regulates intense emotions as well as your heart rate and blood pressure. That's why the Navy SEALs use it. So you can use this anytime. Ever had those days where your hair is just on fire and you're literally running from one meeting to another, to another, to another? I highly encourage you, try to get off one of those meetings a couple of minutes early, and just take a moment and do some box breathing, and you jump on in, or even if it's not rude, maybe join 1 minute late. If you do that, I guarantee you 29 minutes or 28 minutes with your self-focus is going to be more effective than 30 minutes while you're discombobulated, right? And by the way, it's actually great if you're having a hard time falling asleep. For those who raised your hand at the beginning while you're lying in bed, do some of this deep breathing with a long exhale, and that actually will help you fall asleep more quickly. So just a little tip that may be useful.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rich. So let's talk about the third bucket and then have some minutes for maybe some Q&A. Third bucket, community. So why EQ is important, to communities like high tech and others?
Yeah. So I love the question because EQ is really all about community. Actually, based on what Goldman and Brackett, the sort of foremost researchers in the field, they say that the highest form of emotional intelligence, when you have it all, it's shown as compassion. It basically means I understand you, your hopes, your dreams, your fears, your pains and challenges, and I also want to help you. And so that is really community, right? It's like I know about you, I care about you, and I want to support you. In fact, compassion and community have the same root with com, means with, right? So community is doing something together and serving together. Compassion is feeling with, and so I think they really work well.
Excellent, excellent. And I think, something that we should be proud in high tech for, since the beginning, 2007, has been that mentality of a pull up and push up, which is basically about others. So how can I help? How can I help you to progress in your career? How can I help to, to take other positions in boards and, in being an executive? So that mentality is in the roots of high tech. So thank you for sharing that. And I think it is important not to stop with high tech or with other communities, is to actually express that with other, communities, create communities and help others. So just take the opportunity to growth in your EQ even though it is not a requirement. It should be a personal, satisfaction, a personal goal to help others.
Yeah, and I love what you've done, JC. I mean, you obviously are part of high tech, but you've also done this with your, LATAM Solutions Architect organization, right? Community can be anywhere. It can be outside of work, but it also can be at work, where the people feel like we're part of something together, because the senior leaders and the other leaders actually care, and people care about each other. So I think you've been a great example of that. And one thing I will see, too, is I think one of the greatest things we can do as an organization, whether it's high tech or anyone out there, is sharing with as many people as possible, both opportunities, but also sharing about abilities and educating them on how to really leverage social skills, right? Because as I mentioned, the HBR article mentioned that social skills are going to be more and more of the things that allow you to be senior leaders. But if we can actually catch people early, when they're first-time managers, when they're mid-level managers, even when they're like kids in high school and college, if we can actually share social and emotional skills with them, that will compound and pay dividends for the rest of their lives.
Amazing.
Because, trying to become more socially adept at 50, a little harder than if you started at 15, you know what I'm saying? And so if we can share that, really, really powerful.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Rick. So let's see if we have any question from the audience. I mean, we have the 2 microphones. And, okay, so we have Paula here. Yeah.
Hear me? Wow.
Yes.
The voice of
loud and clear.
Voice of a goddess here. Hey, so thank you guys so much for doing this. It was a really great conversation. So very similar background. My name is Paula, Global Leader Sales Transformation for Softtech, Managed IT Services. Also started a new company, nights and weekends, companies in Africa. Yeah. So very similar background, ADHD, immigrant, didn't speak any English, right? Except I got kicked out my last day of pre-K, not the first. So,
well, you made it almost all the way.
I made it almost there. I think they had some
sympathy
sympathy for me. But 2 questions. So the first one is, what plans do you have, if any, of rolling out this program to Africa, and specifically Southern Africa? So the World Economic Forum, a lot of organizations are eyeing Africa as the next tech talent pool, even perhaps bigger than India, to where this talent is going to come from, right? Tech talent pool. And then second of all, what would it take to lead or be part of that team if you were to roll that out? Just asking for a friend, I know of a Latina, it's got experience leading global initiatives.
I love it. That's really, that's fantastic. So here's a long-term plan. And one thing I will say is we are in the pilot phase, so we're kind of figuring this out a little bit as we go, and it's a giant experiment. But built into the plan at the very beginning was a global footprint, right? Like, we are a global company. We've got 1.6 million employees, hundreds of thousands of managers. And so we want to make sure every single person at Amazon actually can avail of both the training, the knowledge, and also the scalable system that can help them quantifiably increase their skills. The other part of the plan is to actually share this with the world at large. Right? We are customer obsessed, and so the things that we learn, the goal is to actually, in many ways, open source it, right? And be able to share with people, hey, this is what we did, right? These are the things that have worked for us. We're undergoing this cultural evolution. We're trying to raise some specific social emotional skills, and we want to be able to offer the curriculum and the content to other people. And so I've been inspired by what other people have done, such as Google and others, and so we want to be able to do that in some way, shape, or form. And as I mentioned, we've already delivered this to actually over 10,000 customers in all parts of the world. And so Africa is absolutely on the roadmap for all the things we're trying to do, because we do want to, really my vision is to help elevate the emotional, social intelligence of the world at large, because I believe it, as corny as that may sound, it really will make the world a better place. If we can learn to be more empathetic and kind, I mean, wow, it's a powerful thing.
More compassionate. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey there.
Tiffany.
Let's see if this works. Okay, I
if you have a
whispered
question,
just so we
please go
didn't
to
have...
yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Stephen Iger, AT&T. Great story. I really appreciate you sharing with the audience, and I love the missionary story and giving back. It's truly epic. The other question I have actually is, you said that you didn't have EIQ, right, for 20 years of your life, or
Yeah,
I believe
EQ,
that was
yeah.
or EQ, sorry. You have the IQ, just not the EQ. Got it. Well, obviously, I'm the other way around. What were the steps you took to culminate or curate the content to share with Amazon? So we've heard about the process and how you're rolling it out, and we were all probably chomping at the bit to watch a YouTube video or have it rolled out on, some form of media content. But what steps did you take to curate the content and change the part of that for yourself?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple things. One is I have the incredibly good fortune of actually working with some of the world's leading authorities in this realm. Daniel Goleman, Matt Lippincott, Mark Brackett. I mean, some of the people who've literally written the books on this topic. So they're helping me. Bill Duane, who actually rolled out the program and expanded it to Google. They're all helping us to be able to make sure that our content is valid, it's scientific, it's has efficacy. And the second thing is running lots and lots of experiments. Honestly, we're a big experimental company in many ways, and so we just basically keep on trying and iterating and see what works. And we do a lot of measurement and a lot of surveys and a lot of ways to be able to figure out what is resonating with people or not. So we're constantly iterating on it and trying to improve on it to see what actually can scale and also have efficacy. So those are two things that I think are making a difference.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Right over here. I know we're a little past our time. I think a gong is going to go off at some point, but until a giant crook pulls us off the stage, I don't know.
So we have last two questions, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you so much. It was a very interesting conversation. And I think you partly answered two of my questions. Two of the lovely people here already asked. One was about rolling out to other global organizations. Two was about, you did suggest some books, but I would want to know a bit more information about what kind of books can we read on emotional intelligence. And then the third one is, I work for Citigroup, okay? That's my introduction. So I'm Archana Pattabi. I work for Citigroup in personal banking and wealth management. I'm the operational risk group manager there. So what I wanted to, I definitely love this idea about bringing in that emotional intelligence to all the leaders. So would you be doing any guest speaking sessions if we do invite you to Citi?
So if you want to find a great sort of set of resources, I actually have a website. It's nothing fancy, but there is a lot of resources there. It's richardhua.co. Okay, richardhua.co. If you go there, there's a bunch of videos, there's TED Talks. I mean, not done by me necessarily, but there's like a bunch of resources. And then a reading list that can get you started on this realm. So you can avail of that. The other thing is, absolutely, come talk to me afterwards. And we're basically piloting. We've already done a whole bunch of talks, like I said, for tens of thousands of customers. We're now rolling out mid to longer workshops for the ones that kind of have that as something they'd like to participate in. So email me or call or talk to me.
Sure.
And you are one of our big customers for AWS, so I'm sure we can figure something out. My people will talk to your people, and we'll do that.
One last interesting question. So we've seen Amazon being the leader in introducing something new, right? When people were not thinking about e-commerce so much, you guys were there, and no wonder your share price is $3,000 now. So can we think that Amazon is also entering into corporate training for making people?
I don't know about the answer to that question. And the way I'd actually frame it a little bit is it's not corporate training per se, it's just one piece of it. I'd actually call it a cultural evolution. What we're trying to undergo is a cultural evolution, and hopefully as we do it, we can share with others what we've done that might be helpful. And so instead of trying to be a sage on the stage, maybe more like a guide on the side, because we know we need to change and grow. Hopefully others can learn from it as well.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much.
I think last question here before we get the big gong, right? Okay.
Hello, how are you? Where's the gong? Perfect. Okay, so thank you for being here. And my question is this one. As leaders, once we understand this, we can implement it in ourselves and our group, right, our employees. How do you make the change upwards? When your leaders are not drinking the Kool-Aid or they are not as sold in with this EQ concept. Unfortunately, we don't catch them when they're 15. We usually catch them when they're 50.
I get asked that question a lot. How do you actually influence, right, essentially the culture and the leaders? The main thing I'd say is this. The key is actually empathy. It's understanding what motivates the people below you, beside you, and above you. And I think one of the big challenges people face when they're ever trying to make a change is they don't actually think about what other people think, and they just go, I really like this. Like if I went around going, I really like emotional intelligence, you should all be more emotional intelligent, I just sound like an idiot, right? But I'm trying to understand, what do people care about? What do leaders care about right now? Retention, attracting talent, employee satisfaction, inclusion, diversity, and equity. If we can actually understand how these fit together and how we can help you reach your goals, that's a way to influence. And so it's a lot about influence. And so I started sort of bottoms up. You know, I found lots and lots of people who were very excited about this because it was benefiting their own life. Like, anybody out there want to manage stress better, reduce their burnout, and be more successful? No one raised their hand. I mean, of course, everybody wants that. And then as we talk to leaders, it's kind of the same thing. So I think empathy is really the key, finding out what they really are looking for, and then figuring out how we can help them achieve their goals while also doing the things that we believe in.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure, you bet.
Excellent. Well, with that, thank you so much, Rich, for your wisdom and for being here with all of us in high tech. And I want to ask everybody for a final request. Use your cell phone and send a text saying thank you to somebody, that you are grateful for anything that happened today to anybody. Okay, so exercise EQ with that text. With that, again, thank you, Rich. Thank you, Rick, also for having us today. Thank you, WWT, for this great event. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.